My dad called me a burden and said I wasn't invited to family dinner. No one wants to see you there, he laughed. My brother added, seriously, don't ruin the mood. I just smiled and quietly left the family group chat. First, I canceled the card linked to their mortgage. Then, I locked the business account they all shared. But what I did next, they never saw coming. After everything I did for them, after bailing them out of debt, after funding their business dreams, after paying off the last chunk of the mortgage they said they'd handle, they told me not to come to dinner. And not just any dinner. It was for my sister, Rachel, who had just come back from Europe after 2 years working abroad. Everyone was going to be there, my parents, my brother Nathan, the cousins, the uncles, everyone except me. It wasn't even a phone call, just a message in the family group chat. Hey Oliver, don't come Sunday. No one wants to see you there. I thought it was a mistake at first. Maybe he meant to send that to someone else. But then Nathan chimed in, seriously, don't ruin the mood. That's when I knew it was real. My own father had decided I wasn't welcome, and my brother backed it up like it was nothing. I didn't say anything. I didn't even text back. I just left the group chat quietly. Then, I opened the banking app and canceled the card that paid their mortgage. It was mine. I had set it up when Dad was struggling and too proud to ask for help, pretending everything was fine while the bills stacked up. Next, I froze the joint business account. I had started the LLC. I brought in the first deals. They had the nerve to put their names on it and act like I was just the IT guy behind the curtain. The part that really stung was Rachel. She didn't say a word, not even a message to check in. She was always close to Nathan, and it seemed like 2 years in Europe hadn't changed a thing. She came back with stories and gifts for everyone, just not for me. I didn't tell Lily right away. We were supposed to have dinner, but I couldn't eat. When I finally told her, she didn't ask questions. She just said, do what you have to do. So I did. By the next morning, I had 5 voicemails from Dad, 1 from Mom, 2 from cousins, and a formal, cold email. Oliver, what you did was unacceptable. That dinner wasn't about you, it was about family. You're acting like a child. I read it twice, then deleted it. Family, that word didn't mean much coming from them anymore. Then I got the follow-up, we were joking. Don't overreact. That's when I replied, take me out of the family business. I'm done. I copied our lawyer. No more pretending. The fallout was instant. Calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Mom crying over the phone, telling me I was overreacting. Dad saying I betrayed them. Nathan texting me things I won't repeat. And through all of it, they kept blaming Lily. My mom even said, you used to be a good son before she came along, as if being with someone born in another country erased who I was. They'd always treated her like she didn't belong, made comments they thought were subtle. My dad once asked if she spoke English at home. My aunt asked her if she knew how to use a dishwasher. Lily stayed silent through all of it. She told me it didn't matter, but it did. It built up until now. Now they were furious. Now they were scared. Because I'd always been the quiet one, the one who helped without asking, the one who bit his tongue. Not anymore. The morning after I sent the email cutting them out of the business, I half expected someone to show up at my apartment, but no one did. What I didn't expect was the silence. No calls, no messages, just a kind of eerie quiet, like the whole family went underground, regrouping. By noon, though, they came out swinging. It started with a group email. This time, not in the chat, but from Dad's personal address. Subject line, your choices have consequences. Copied in were Mom, Rachel, Nathan, and 2 of our uncles who had nothing to do with the business but always made a lot of noise when drama surfaced. The message read like a coordinated attack, guilt, denial, and passive aggression all mixed together, like they'd been writing it together at the dinner table I wasn't invited to. Dad's part said I'd embarrassed the family and accused me of being manipulated. Mom's part was longer. She talked about sacrifice, how they left everything behind in Shanghai so their children could grow up in a place with opportunity, how I was throwing away my roots and identity for someone who doesn't even share our values. Then, in the same breath, she wrote that she was praying for me and hoped I'd remember where I came from. Rachel didn't write anything, but I saw her name on the CC list. That was all I needed to know. They made it clear that I had overstepped, that I had no right to touch family property, even though the LLC paperwork was under my name and the startup funds were mine. I knew they thought they were being strategic, play the victim, paint me as the one who turned cold, twist the knife while smiling politely. I ignored the email and headed to the office. I built the company from scratch. I did freelance web development in college, then slowly scaled into real estate tech. They only got involved when they saw money coming in. I offered them a stake as a gesture, thinking maybe it would bring us closer. It didn't. It just gave them another reason to use me. 2 hours later, I got a call from my assistant. She said someone named Thomas Lee was waiting in the lobby and refusing to leave. My dad. He'd never visited the office before. Not once. Not when we signed our first deal, not when I expanded into 3 states. But now he was standing downstairs, demanding to see me. I told her to let him up. He walked in like it was his boardroom, didn't even acknowledge my staff, and sat down without asking. He didn't waste time. "You've lost it," he said. "Rachel's homecoming wasn't about you. You think you're some kind of hero because you pay the bills? Family isn't business, and business isn't family." I told him if he really believed that, he wouldn't have put his name on a company he didn't build. That's when he snapped, said if I wanted to act like an outsider, I shouldn't expect loyalty from my own blood. I said, "Loyalty doesn't mean obedience." He walked out. That same afternoon, I called my lawyer and told him to move forward with the paperwork, full removal of every family member from any legal and financial ties to the business. I wasn't just freezing access now, I was deleting it. I thought maybe someone, Rachel at least, would call. She didn't. Nathan posted a cryptic message on his Instagram story about betrayal and snakes. A few of our extended family unfollowed me. One aunt messaged me, asking what Lily had done to me. I didn't even respond. I remembered every little moment they made her feel like she didn't belong, how they smiled at her like she was a tourist in our family, how my mom always asked if she missed her real home, how they mocked her accent when they thought she wasn't listening. She always told me to let it go, said it wasn't worth it, but I saw how it hurt her. That evening, she came home to find me sitting in silence at the kitchen table, laptop open, email drafts unsent. She looked at me and said, "Don't back down." That was all. No drama, just quiet support. We took a walk later, past all these houses glowing warm with people inside, families having dinner, laughing, watching TV. I realized something during that walk. I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them, the version of my family I used to wish existed. And I finally understood something I'd been trying to ignore my whole life: they only wanted me around when I was useful. Now that I was standing up for myself, I wasn't just unwelcome, I was dangerous. But I was done being useful. I was done being polite. And I was all in. By the end of that week, the story had reached every corner of the family. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly remembered I existed. Aunt Linda left a 5-minute voicemail about how I was tearing the family apart. One of my cousins who still lived in our hometown posted some vague rant on Facebook about entitled people who think money makes them better than family. It got a few likes from other relatives. They were scrambling to control the narrative, trying to make it sound like I was unstable, that I'd gone rogue, that Lily was manipulating me, isolating me from my roots. A few even hinted that maybe she was just after my money, like they hadn't been living off it for years. I knew things were getting bad when Mom sent a message saying I was shaming her in front of the whole community. That word, shame, carried weight. It meant she wasn't just upset, she felt publicly humiliated. But none of them ever asked me why. They didn't ask why I cut them off, why I walked away, why I stopped pretending. They didn't want to hear it. They wanted me to apologize and crawl back quietly. They wanted the version of me who stayed quiet at dinner while they mocked people like Lily and laughed about it afterward. That version of me was gone. The tension finally snapped when Rachel invited everyone, except me, to a second dinner. Another one. This time smaller, just siblings and close family, she said in a text that somehow made its way to me through a cousin. She made a point to tell people it was to clear the air. Clear the air without me in the room. I forwarded the message to our lawyer. By now, the paperwork was almost done. My lawyer had already filed for reclassification of the business structure. Every name tied to the original agreement, Dad, Nathan, even Mom's silent shares, was being removed. There was one final document left, a statement dissolving any partnership rights retroactively. He said once it was filed, there was no going back. Lily asked me before I signed it if I was sure. I said yes. What surprised me most was how quickly they retaliated. They went straight to the old family friend who had introduced me to my first client years ago, a guy named Mark who had always kept a good relationship with both sides. They tried to get him to take their side. He didn't. He sent me a message saying, "They don't realize you don't owe them anything anymore." And that was the truth. I didn't. But the resentment was boiling. They started calling me a traitor, not to my face, but to everyone else. Nathan told a mutual friend I'd turned against my own blood for a woman, as if standing up for Lily was betrayal, as if having boundaries was rebellion. Then one night, Mom came to my apartment unannounced. She stood outside the door and knocked. I didn't open it. She called through the door and said things I thought I'd never hear her say, that I dishonored them, that I was choosing a stranger over the people who raised me, that they didn't recognize me anymore. And then she said it, "If this is who you are now, maybe we don't have a son anymore." I didn't open the door. I just stood there on the other side, listening. She eventually left. That night, I sat with Lily and told her everything, every memory, every little moment I let slide, every insult I laughed off, every time I told myself they meant well. She didn't try to fix it. She just stayed. And I realized something else that night. They had always made me feel like I was one decision away from being cut off, one disagreement, one wrong choice, and I'd lose their approval. So I made that choice for them. A week after my mom stood outside my door and told me I wasn't her son anymore, I thought maybe things would finally go quiet. They'd said their piece. I'd made my decision. We were done. But I was wrong. Lily and I were planning a weekend trip out to Carmel, something low-key to just breathe for a bit. I hadn't checked my emails in 2 days, just trying to disconnect. But when I opened my inbox Monday morning, There it was, a notice from the state business registry. Someone had filed a fraud complaint against me. At first, I thought it was some scam, but it wasn't. The complaint claimed I had illegally removed partners from a joint business without consent. It was signed anonymously, but I didn't need to guess. They were trying to tie me up legally, slow things down, maybe even drag me into court. I sent it straight to my lawyer, who confirmed what I suspected. The complaint had no real legal ground, but it could delay the restructuring for weeks, maybe months. That same day, Lily got a message from someone she didn't recognize on Instagram. It was a long paragraph, clearly written by someone in the family. The language was too familiar. It said she'd broken a family apart, that she should be ashamed for pulling me away from the people who fed and raised me. It told her to leave me before more damage was done. The account was private, no name, but it had photos of Rachel and Nathan in the followers list. That was the line. I never thought they'd go after her directly. Not like that. Not cowardly and anonymous. She read the message once, didn't say anything, and deleted it. But I could see it shook her. That night, I drove to Nathan's house. I hadn't seen him in person since all of this started. I didn't call. I just showed up. He answered the door with that smug expression he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. I asked if he knew anything about the message sent to Lily. He said nothing at first, just leaned on the doorframe and smiled. Then he said, "Well, maybe if you weren't so dramatic, no one would feel the need to reach out." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. I told him to tell the family this was the last time. If they came after her again, I'd make sure every skeleton in their closets ended up in front of the IRS, the bank, and anyone who cared to look. He didn't smile after that. I left before he could say anything else. The next morning, Rachel sent me a long message. It was the first time she reached out directly. She said I'd gone too far, that no matter how badly they acted, it didn't give me the right to tear everything down. She said family meant forgiveness, even when it was hard. I almost replied, but then she ended the message with this: "Mom and Dad said they're done with you. You can still fix this, but you need to fix it now." That was it. No apology. No recognition of what they'd done. Just more pressure, more silence about what really mattered. And I finally understood. They weren't mad because I hurt them. They were mad because I stopped letting them hurt me. They thought I was still the quiet one, the one who stayed late to help clean up after parties I was barely acknowledged at, the one who paid the bills no one talked about, the one who forgave everything. They never expected me to fight back, to walk away, to win. But I had. And they were furious. 3 weeks after Rachel's message, everything felt oddly still. No calls, no emails, no messages from unknown numbers. I should have felt relieved. Instead, it felt like that pause before a storm hits. I kept waiting for something. Then it came. It started with a letter, not an email. A physical letter in a cream-colored envelope, left inside my office mailbox. No return address. It was from my dad. It was short. No apologies, no admissions, just a statement: "As far as we're concerned, you're no longer part of this family. Don't contact us again. Don't show up. You've made your choice." It wasn't a surprise. It was just jarring to see it written down. But then came the twist I didn't expect. I found out they'd sold their shares in another joint property we'd co-invested in years ago, a house in Oakland. They sold it quietly without even telling me. And somehow, they'd used an old document with a forged digital signature to push the deal through without my approval. They thought I wouldn't notice, but the buyer's title company flagged it. They reached out to confirm my identity before finalizing the escrow release. That's how I found out. I got a call from a legal assistant asking if I really meant to sign off on the transfer of funds. My name was on the final authorization, but I hadn't signed anything. My lawyer stepped in immediately. A fraud investigation was opened. The deal was frozen. I confronted them through an official legal notice. It was the first time I'd initiated contact in weeks. I didn't even get a response. Just silence. I told Lily everything that night. I thought she'd be scared, but she just asked me one question: "Do you still believe they'll ever change?" And the truth is, I didn't. A few days later, I heard from someone completely unexpected: Rachel's ex-boyfriend, Mark. We hadn't spoken in over a year. He called me out of the blue and asked if I had time for coffee. I was suspicious but curious enough to say yes. He told me something I hadn't known, that the whole family had been planning to push me out of the business for months, long before the dinner incident. Apparently, Nathan had been planting seeds behind the scenes, telling the older family members that I was unstable, too emotional, bad for business. They were trying to figure out how to squeeze me out without triggering legal backlash. The dinner message, that wasn't a random outburst. It was the first strike. Mark said he felt guilty sitting on the information once he saw how far they were willing to go. He had nothing to gain from telling me. In fact, it probably caused more drama for him. But I thanked him and told him it made sense. Too much sense. They didn't just turn on me after I walked away, they'd been planning the turn. That night, something in me gave up. Not in a bitter, defeated way. It was more like acceptance, a kind of emotional exhale. I had tried longer than I should have, given more than they ever deserved. And now I saw what it had always been: Conditional love wrapped in obligation. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't respond to the silence. I simply removed the last remaining ties. The name Grant was officially pulled from the business. I replaced it with my own name. Just mine. No more legacy, no more family ties. Just the business I built and a woman beside me who never once asked me to be anything other than who I am. They called me a traitor, but they forgot one thing about traitors: they're only dangerous if they have something to betray. And I didn't anymore. 2 months passed. No contact, no noise. After the fraud report was closed in my favor and the property returned to my control, everything just stopped. I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. Winning doesn't feel like anything when it's against your own family. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't even hoping for one. I had buried the idea of reconciliation weeks ago when Mom stood on my doorstep and said they didn't have a son anymore. It stuck in my head like a splinter. I replayed those words more than I'd admit. Then the letter came. It was handwritten in Mom's usual careful script, like she still thought appearances mattered. No apology in the beginning, no admission of anything. Just, we don't want to fight anymore. She said they miss me, said they knew they went too far, that Rachel would be back from Boston in a few days and they wanted to sit down, just talk. There was something else tucked into the envelope, a photo. One of the few we ever took together where everyone looked happy. Dad grilling, Rachel laughing, Nathan holding up a beer, and me, younger, smiling, holding a bowl of salad like an idiot. I stared at it for a long time. Then I got a text from Nathan: "Enough's enough. They're getting old. Let it go." Just like that. No hey, no asking how I was. Just more pressure disguised as concern. He didn't even acknowledge what they'd done: the forged documents, the harassment toward Lily, the fact that they tried to erase me from my own business. It was like all of it could be wiped clean if I just agreed to have dinner with them again. Then Rachel chimed in too. She was always the diplomatic one, the peacekeeper. She messaged, "I know it's hard, but don't let pride win. They're still your parents. You owe it to them to sit down." Oh. That word again. I read her message 3 times, then I left it on read. That night, Lily and I didn't talk much. We sat on the balcony with a bottle of wine, the same kind she brought the night they first refused to meet her. I told her everything, about the letter, the messages, the photo. She just listened. Eventually, she said something I haven't been able to shake: "They'll always see you as the person who's supposed to carry the weight. Even now, they want peace, but they want you to make it happen." She was right. This wasn't an olive branch. This was a reset button, with me expected to press it. And I was tired. Tired of being the one who always absorbed the damage. Tired of making excuses for people who never once paused to ask what their behavior had cost me. Tired of chasing a version of family that never really existed. They could apologize 1,000 times, it still wouldn't change the way they looked at Lily, or the way they weaponized silence, loyalty, money, or the fact that when given the choice, they picked control over love. So I sat with it, the letter, the photo, the texts, and I didn't answer. Not yet. Because here's the truth: they had their chance, and they didn't just ruin it, they torched it. But it's not about revenge anymore. It's about peace. My peace. And maybe that means walking into that dinner and saying what needs to be said. Or maybe it means never answering again. Let it die, or let it haunt. I don't know yet. But what I do know is that for the first time in my life, I don't need them to choose me. Because I already have. The updates. I didn't expect to be writing this. 3 weeks passed since the letter. I never replied, didn't block them, just left everything unanswered. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. At least, I thought I was. Then last Friday, something happened that knocked the air out of me. My mom showed up at my office. She came alone. No text ahead of time, no call. Just walked in and asked the receptionist if she could speak to me. When I got the message, I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. I told her she had 10 minutes. She looked tired, older somehow. I hadn't seen her face in months, and it hit me that we were both getting older, fast. She sat across from me in the meeting room and didn't touch the glass of water I poured for her. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just said, "Your father's sick. Not just a cold. We found out a few weeks ago. He didn't want you to know." I didn't say anything. My thoughts were racing, but none of them were clear. She told me it was prostate cancer, that they caught it late, that he'd started treatment but it was aggressive. That the doctors weren't saying much yet, but they were worried. Then she said something else. "He wants to talk to you." I asked her why he didn't come himself. She said, "He's been different lately. That he doesn't say it out loud, but he regrets a lot. That he's been looking at old photos of me. That he hasn't touched the family business paperwork since everything collapsed." I didn't know what to say. I didn't feel nothing, but I also didn't feel what I thought I would. No flood of forgiveness, no rage either. Just confusion. She slid a small envelope across the table before she left. It had a handwritten note inside from him: "If this is the end of my time, I don't want to spend it pretending you're not my son." That line messed me up. I brought the letter home, showed it to Lily. We sat quietly for a long time, just processing. She didn't try to push me either way, but she did say one thing: you don't owe them anything. But if you need closure, maybe this is it.